Spears and Kurt Malone all notified us they would not be at the meeting today, so they have various doctor's appointments or other things going on, so they weren't able to attend. I did send out the meeting minutes from the last meeting. Anybody have any changes, corrections? If not, we'll go ahead and mark those approved and send those on to the board for their approval. We don't have a guest speaker this month. We're looking at a bunch of speakers coming in the new year, but we didn't have a speaker lined up for December, so we won't have any guest speaker this month. So we'll just go ahead and we should have a relatively short meeting, I think, today, but we'll go ahead and go through the agenda. Lots of things kind of going on around the village, and we'll talk a little bit about some of the new business, especially economic impact study. We got some information on that, so Bob will talk about that here shortly, and we got a handout to talk about the status of that. It's coming along pretty well, but does still need some more work. We are still looking for some more members, so I'm opening it back up again for membership. We have a couple of members that haven't attended for a while, and I'd like to find replacements if they're not going to be able to participate. I'd like to find some more members to fill their spaces because we have a lot of work that we need to do. There was actually some good news about the redistricting. I don't know, you may have seen that. It looks like it did go our way. Thanks. Yeah, half of it did anyway. But anyway, it did. Thanks to everybody that made public comments. I think that made a big difference. In trying to keep the village more cohesive in terms of the redistricting efforts that was going on. So we'll continue to follow that, and I guess that I don't know if there'll be any further. Is there any further action on that, or is it kind of just done at this
Basically,
point?
it's done. What we will, and I'll just jump in and give you a little more. The background on that one is the Senate one. We will stay in the same district. The whole village is in District 6, which is currently Bill Sample's district. So actually, the governor announced that on his meeting. It was specifically talked about that district. And thank Bill Sample, because Bill Sample rolled in hard on that one. He wanted to make sure the village stayed in the same district too. So besides our public comments, you had the senator involved in that. Unfortunately, we will have 3 House districts in the village. We'll have Richard McGrew's district. We will have Lanny's district, which takes in most of Saline County. And then you will have Mary Bentley as our representative for basically the Granada Golf Course area type of stuff there.
We had that back.
Right.
We had that back in my day. Jason Rayford at one point had that area.
Had that area. So there's a little bit, it's a little bit, it was nice when we just had 2, and then we had Richard with that, but now we're going to have 3, and they're all going to have different pieces. The positive on it, after the announcement was made on Monday, the actual maps came out and showed that we were going to stay with 3 districts. Is I talked to Mary Bentley that day, and I will get her down here to come and talk to government affairs because she needs to get down to the village. Her district has expanded into Saline County, and she had none of that before. So she's really interested in getting to know her new district. So I just want to give you a heads up that we'd hope to only go to 2, but we're good 3. But we've already the contact's already been made with the representative up in that area. So.
Good.
Okay.
Yeah, I was gonna say, when you sent that email out, I was talking to Richard, and he says, no, the house is the same.
Yeah. Right.
I said, oh.
Yeah, the house is the one that's really kind of messed up.
Yeah.
And we did have a lot of public comment besides Joni, John, and Greg put in public comment. Numerous people up in the Granada area put their public comment in too, so because they were the ones affected. But yeah, you win some, you lose some. Winning one was good just to have one senator. So.
All right. All right, we'll move on to other reports. POA board, Joni.
Well, on the POA board, I would say the next up is finding our new GM. And we intend to find a good one. And that's the mission of the board right now. Take a little break for the holidays, and then we're not going to settle. We want someone good that can lead the village. Now, Having said that, they have some pretty good shoes to fill because John Paul, who sees me at least 3 times a week, will say, "We got a new GM yet?" Because he does not want the permanent position. And he's made that very clear to me, so. But we are working on that. That's our, once the assessment increase was over, then we already had candidates lined up to start interviewing. And I guess that's probably,
And the assessment increase passed.
and
Because
the,
we had-
did we have a need? Have we
No,
had-
no.
Okay, no, I'm sorry. You know, it's in my back mirror because we've got, I mean, we've had 2 really big things facing us.
Right.
And it's nice to have those done. And I was really proud of the villagers that they recognized, the majority recognized that we did need an assessment increase. And now it will be up to the board to make sure that money goes to where it's going to go. And we are working on something that we hopefully will present, not hopefully, it will be presented monthly so that the villagers can see also that the money was spent here and what it was spent on. And we, in fact, the board has to determine, we'll take 5, we're gonna take 5 things, highlight those in my mind for the year. And so every month you'll be able to see, we filled this many potholes, or we did this, or we did that. We just have to determine what the 5 are. And so, it's been a busy time for the board, and it continues to be
That's
busy.
what you get paid the big bucks for.
Well,
I'm still living off my board pay.
well, you know, you're lucky, because my husband the other day just asked me, I'd ask him a question on something, and he told me, he said, I think I need a consultant fee, and I said, you can have 50% of what I get. So, and some people do think we get paid, so I do want to make that remark, that no, we do not get paid. We're all volunteers.
What would you say, I mean, now they've done the assessments increase, what would you say is the biggest goal that the board wants to accomplish that we could potentially help with in 2022, kind of moving forward? And how could we measure that, I guess, you know, our effectiveness in helping with that?
Greg, that's a good question. I would have to think about it a
Yeah,
little bit.
that'd be great. I mean, because I'd love for us to figure out how we, as
Absolutely.
part of that, you know, messaging and whatever, how we can kind of work together and show that we're making,
Well,
you know,
and
progress towards
I
those
know
goals.
that you're working on money, on grants, and that's very much appreciated. We need to get some facts in that,
Right.
to move forward on that. But I really feel that this group and doing what they do really represents the board in the area of governmental affairs. I will have to say, I did not realize just how much you do. I mean, it's pretty impressive, and I always like to hear everybody talk because I learn something new every time I'm here, usually 5 or 6 new things. And so it takes a while to get your feet wet and get on the ground to understand what's going on. And I do read, before the board meetings, I do read every committee's report, and I have learned so much. I learned my lake from the Lakes Committee had the biggest population of geese. And I knew we had a lot.
Whether that's good or bad, I don't know.
Yeah, that's not necessarily good.
Yeah.
So, you know, what you do here is incredibly important, and I'm finding that more every day. I'm also really interested in that economic impact study, because I think that's key for us right now.
That was what I was gonna say, Greg. I think the thing that we can do most from my past experience with the boards is the economic impact study.
Right.
Will have a significant effect on Hot Springs Village.
Sure.
And so I feel that's the real major thing. terms of a contribution this coming year.
Right. I think one of the things that I was kind of asking that question, because I'd like for us to get more public visibility too, because a lot of people don't know what we do, and that's why we have a hard time sometimes getting members to join, because they don't understand. We do a lot of behind the scenes, but a lot of people don't know what that is.
Right.
Compared to like the Lakes Committee, it's like, okay, we know about lakes, right? Or the Trails Committee, we know about trails, but, you know, some way that we can be tied in kind of at a strategic goal level with the board. And we could be, you know, we could talk about some of that as a part of your reports or whatever that you want to do monthly, and how we, you know, can help affect that. So
Okay.
that's kind of what I'm getting at with that, because, you know, we have, you know, we have a few people that, you know, have joined. We have a hard time kind of recruiting the kind of people I think that we really need, and I think it's because they don't understand how important the committee is and what we're trying to do here. And if we could figure out how to get that more out in the public, that would be a
Okay.
huge help.
I know that impact, the first one that I ever saw, I think was done in 2016, I think is the first one that I ever saw that. And I was impressed with all the data, all the information in there,
Yeah,
but really impressed with just how much money goes out of here
right,
and does not come back in here.
right, exactly.
And so I will make sure when we get that out, that we will
Good.
let people know where it came from.
Yeah, Bob.
I think also, Greg, of course, I go way back, but the thing that this committee has done so much the public doesn't realize is the relationships that we have
Right.
established with our school districts, how they are a part of this village, and also with our legislators. Because that was not here. That was the reason this committee came into existence, was to try to make sure that the outside world knew what Hot Springs Village was. And we've done a remarkable job, but today people just take it for granted and don't realize.
That's right.
And I think that's one of the things that we could perhaps try to focus on, and help the village understand.
Yeah.
Well, Bob, I'll jump on that one. And these are some things that in the last few years we've kind of let fall by the wayside. And I'll use an example. Each chamber will be having a function after the first of the year. They always have their big chamber meetings. We used to always go down there and force.
Yep.
And I can remember eating a lot of rubber chicken when I was on the board and on the GAC, whether it was down in Hot Springs or over in Benton. But those are the type of things that you're just being seen out there. And I want to kind of tie on it, because that's something that we probably need to reestablish there, Greg, because that just puts our faces down there. And it puts us intermixing with them. It puts Joni as the board chairman down there. It puts whoever the GM would be. I mean, that's a perfect example, is the GM's down there interfacing, because he or she may need something from either of those counties, and they need to be able to know who to
Yep.
contact with. So I just throw that out there because it kind of lays right into the type of thing. As we look out to the future, we need to go back and start doing some of those things. And I want to say we've kind of let them slip by the wayside.
Well, unfortunately, with the chamber sort of struggling right now, with that relationship.
Well, I'm talking the metro, the
Yep.
people downtown, having Joni or whoever the chairman is, sitting, just saying, hey, here's who this guy is, and here's who this person is. Because that's the people who are kind of moving it. And we've kind of, with the aging of some of our former GAC members and the passing away of our former GAC members.
We also used to go as a group to the prayer breakfast
Yeah,
downtown. We had a whole table
Yep.
there. And it's that kind of visibility that
visibility.
is
It's
really.
being part of the community.
Yeah, for sure.
So I just throw that out there.
Yeah, I don't know who from the POA interacts with like the Hot Springs Chamber now. I don't know who that is.
Kevin?
Yeah.
Kevin does at that level, but we used to have Tom Arwood down there all the time. But Tom's aged out.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's,
Yeah.
if we had someone that's working with them that could arrange it, I could get people to go. I mean,
Yeah.
I've been to bunches of them, you've been to bunches of them, right? But, even the candidate forums, we all rallied and did a lot of those things.
Yeah.
But we needed somebody, the POA is actually the member of the chamber, so they're gonna be the people that they're gonna contact about, do you want a table, do you want whatever? So I don't know what his interaction is with Gary and the guys down in the Hot Springs Chamber. I mean, the chamber here is, is struggling.
Yeah.
And is not really doing a lot at all.
Yeah,
at
this was the
point, so.
interaction with,
But-
Gary Troutman over there,
Yeah.
or Lamont, and the folks over in, or Gary James over in Benton, so.
Right. Yeah.
Who would give us that information?
We just
The-
need to
the
ask the
meeting-
chambers.
Yeah, I mean, the
We just
chamber
need-
sends out, I get emails from them
Yeah,
all
we
the
just-
time, so.
But if that's getting back to that focus, because that's what creates those relationships.
Yes.
That it's not just when I need something, it's when I'm
No.
going talking,
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things, we get the impact study, I want to talk to Karen about getting Cole McCaskill over here, who's the economic development guy for the Hot Springs Chamber. He's a great job, he's a good guy, and we can have him come out and talk to us about economic development in the region as it relates to our impact study, right, and how we might be able to be part of that. We haven't really had
And
those,
al- and
we
also-
haven't had public conversations about that, we've had
And
private
also
conversations.
Saline County.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly,
Yeah.
right.
Well, and also, Greg, when we get that, in the past, we've had personal delivery of that report to the right people by people who are representing Hot Springs Village and
Right.
taking that and putting it in their hands and sharing a little bit of information
Sure.
about it. That's been done in the past, and we need to be sure that we
Good point,
yeah.
yeah.
But we
And
got
another
it,
thing,
yeah.
we've got the quorum court meeting in January coming up.
So, but, I mean, it's just those type of relationships that we need to reestablish, and we have a perfect opportunity because we have a new document.
Right.
To go out and
Right.
reestablish that. And then to
Yeah.
reestablish us sitting, like I said, the rubber chicken circuit,
For sure,
you gotta do it sometimes,
right,
so.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, I went to the chamber's last big thing they had. I don't think there was anybody else there from the
No.
village.
It used to be, there used to be a table, Hot Springs Village had a
Yeah.
table, and
Yeah,
you
Yeah,
sent
for
board
sure.
members down there, you sent the GM down there, and you
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
sent a couple people from the Government Affairs Committee down there, and they sat there and you went out and you got to meet people.
Right.
I mean, when you're sitting at a table next to, I can remember sitting down to Bruce Westerman,
yeah,
when he was still a state rep, and then it was really funny because the other guy who was sitting was Dustin McDaniel, and if you know the history of Dustin McDaniel, who was on track to be the governor or the attorney general or whatever, and kind of exploded the next day. But you're dealing with those type of people.
yeah, exactly.
You know what, I think one thing Bob brought up I really like, especially since we're gonna be divided to 3 representatives now. It'd be nice just once we have that impact study, to invite all the representatives here, as well as our senator, and have maybe a little get-together, hit the highlights of the impact study, and then give them a copy right there, face to face. And hopefully that helps us a little bit. We're still looking for money from the state and the whole thing, and what this village really represents, and hard facts that they can carry back and maybe do a better job.
Dave?
Just a brief comment that links together a couple of things that have been said. There was a comment made about the fee increase passing and why the fee increase passed. And now we're talking about this subject about interacting, or the village actively interacting with other government entities. I believe that a very core reason why the fee increase passed was because of, on the part of the committee, they did outstanding background homework. They broke the sweat to do their homework. They communicated the data in a professional manner. And then the communication of the campaign itself was conducted with a lot of communication in a professional manner. A core foundational reason why the fee increase passed was because of quality professional communication from start to finish. You just mentioned a minute ago that there was recently an event that you were the only person from the village that was there. I wonder to what degree even the fact that the event was occurring was communicated. I've lived in the village for 6 to 7 years, and I have said from very early on that the village's most core foundational problem and the root of what have been many of its issues is nothing more than quality communication, which quite bluntly is abysmal about anything and everything. And I think more than absolutely anything else, we need to look at just our quality of communication relating to everything. End of speech.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, one of the, when I talked about there wasn't really anybody else from the village there, I mean, in past years, like last year, or they didn't do it last year, but the year before last, we had a table down at the big chamber annual meeting, and, it was kind of coordinated by Ella, with Leslie. I mean, that was kind of the POA. It's like rallied some people. It's like, we have this table, we need some, here's, tell me if you got a couple of members that want to go, right? And we rally people to go and fill that table up. But it takes someone to kind of be the lead person to rally, to try to get folks. And like Jason, the last one, I think Jason was there, Stephanie was there, I was there. There was another member from the committee was there.
I think this hits
Who else
into
was-
new
Leslie was there.
recruitment of someone who could be that person
Yeah.
for the GAC.
Yeah.
Because,
So-
we used to have someone on the GAC who kind of was the rallying point.
Yeah.
So, and then it fell on Ella.
Yeah, so, okay, well, we'll move on, but I agree, communications is a key thing, so, moving along, next, topic, broadband, Keith.
Okay, do you want to cover the new business one now?
Sure, we can
Do
just
it all
cover
at
them
once?
all together, it's
Okay.
fine.
Hopefully everybody's seen the construction going on Elcano and Pizarro digging. So First Electric or First to Connect is out there doing their thing. I'd encourage everybody to get online and put your information in if you're interested in that, because that's telling them where they want to go, type of stuff here. The really sad part is they're coming down Elcano, and Elcano has some of the best
Right,
coverage as it is, but they gotta go down Elcano to get to all these other places.
Right.
So, especially you folks in Benifar, hopefully you all, some of you up there have put in that you want First Electric up there in Benifar.
Who do we put in with?
You go on their
That website.
website, First to Connect, and there is a information type of something. It's not easy to find, but they're looking that you want information, you can put that, I'm interested in your broadband service.
Okay.
So it's actually on their separate website, First to Connect, and, went in and, so I'd encourage people to continue to do that, because,
Well, there is a Benefar Ladies Luncheon today.
yeah,
And we can,
there you go.
have everybody put it in, and so,
Right.
that they, hopefully Benifar, which really needs it, one of the areas that really needs it, can get up there, quickly, but again, it's 1.5 miles up the road to get
Right.
to your house.
To the first house.
So, but I can do that. Second thing, and we've kind of sent the email out, there was, and Sam, this goes back to the meeting that you talked about in November, about broadband. Yes, the legislators did meet with the state broadband people. The state broadband people then contacted with the Saline County librarian. There's a survey out there, Arkansas Broadband Survey. So we've already done all our data, but we have it in one database. But they were going through the libraries to do this. I would encourage that Will, as the broadband manager, be the person to honcho this survey for the POA. Because that's, this committee made the recommendation that we need someone on the staff as the broadband focus.
Right.
But to take that survey and get it out to the population again, saying, all right, we know you did the survey 2 years ago, 3 years ago, the state is asking for this information. And this will type of stuff there, and send it out so that both Saline and Garland County get it out. So we put it in the right channels. to do the survey.
Right, because one of the concerns is that they try to use the survey data that Broadband Now has, which is not accurate. Because it's reported by the carriers, and we
Yep.
know that the actuals are nowhere near what the carrier is reporting, in many cases out here. So it's important that we get in front of that and make sure they don't just pull data from Broadband Now and say, oh, well, they have good service, because Broadband Now says they have it, but they don't, so.
So John, I mean, are you willing to take the task as
Yeah.
Will has got it? I'll send you
We'll handle
there's,
it.
there's a link and stuff like that that the librarian sent me.
Let me have it.
And I'll send it across to you and let Will get it out in Village Digest and be the point of contact, so it comes across, comes from the POA staff, the right person in the POA staff. And get this out and encourage the public to do it again. All we can do is keep begging for better broadband. Sometimes it's the way it is, so. But that's kind of it on broadband, so.
All right, we'll just continue on with Saline County while you're on a roll here.
Sure. Okay, Saline County, a couple things. Of course, it's budget time. Not much changes in the budget, except there's gonna be significant, I say significant, but COLA increases. That's gonna eat up a lot of the budget, right there. And we're looking at up to 5%, have to increase employee pay because of the inflation factor and everything else. So that'll all be finalized here within the next couple weeks, but that's the big item on the budget. As far as other things in Saline County, we've talked a lot about the American Rescue Plan out there. The county did receive 3 applications for the American Rescue Plan if you total up all the money there, approximately up to $15 million of the $23 million that Saline County has available. People have already submitted applications for them. There's one major project. It's a very large water project that will impact a lot of the county. Unfortunately, it will not impact us because we have our own water system. But that whole major water system in there is going to be impacted there. So there's still the opportunity for the POA, if the POA wishes to in the future, go out and submit an American Rescue Plan application. There's still about $8 million probably that's going to be left from Saline County. And then the Garland County side I can't speak for out there, but I just want to let you know that the Quorum Court will be looking at those in January. So there's significant.
And I mentioned that to the Public Services Committee, so I've made them aware of it.
Okay. So we just need to, if it's, something where the POA wants to pursue, there's still opportunity out there, and that, Bob, that's kind of why we don't need the big lobbying effort in January, because the POA is not going to have a proposal sitting at the Quorum Court. We'll have other people in there lobbying for their proposals. Just a reminder, 2022 is a reappraisal time for both counties. If you're 65 and you have not locked in your thing, you might want to make sure you got it locked in. Because I tell you, your assessment values are not going down. And I have this from experience because I ran into one of the appraisers and I talked to him and I just looked at him and all he did was going, like this. So the guys out there doing the reappraisals are already, they know it's going up, and it shouldn't be any shock for the rate that what people are paying for houses around here. So out there, I talked about Mary Bentley, so I'll try to get her. Sam, get all legislation, she'd be a good one to get in. Same time as Lanny and Bill and Richard there. So one thing I throw out now from the county perspective is. And this is from the state perspective too, is this organization has done candidate forums in the past. They were always focused on the general election. So you're looking at September timeframe. If you look at the landscape of the counties, there are going to be some primary races internal to the different parties in the county. And in some of those races in the counties, they will determine who's going to get elected in the general. It's just That's the fact of the counties here, out there. As well as if you look at some of the state races, you know, you got how many, we're probably, 50 or 60 people running for lieutenant governor now? I don't know. I just laugh. But would it behoove this committee to try to do something focused towards the primary? Because there's some big decisions that are gonna need to be made at the primaries. And then be ready to have one for the general. You see what I'm saying? Because I know in the county, in Saline County, there's gonna be multiple people running for treasurer. There's gonna be multiple people probably running for collector. There will be in one of our Senate seat, there's gonna be multiple people running in the Republican primary. So would it be something to set up a forum so our populace could at least see who these people are running in the primaries? You know, some of the things are gonna be solo, but for some of these contested races in the primary, that's, you know, that's where maybe won or lost. I mean, I throw it out there, and I'd be willing to work with someone, if Sam, if you and I want to sit down and try to get this, March is the filing period, we're gonna know after March, all these people looking at an April timeframe to invite them here. Invite our population to say, all right, here's the Republicans running, and here's the Democrats running. And, you know, kind of just say type of stuff there.
Not only that, I think, Keith, go along with that, I think if we did that, and then we actually narrowed it down and endorsed a person, and that person won, all of a sudden, now that person knows how much power. the
Well, and
village
that's
has.
what you need to have a discussion about is,
Yes.
but to at least get them in, because again, I look at that lieutenant governor's race on the Republican side and say,
Yeah.
who else is gonna jump into this? I mean, they just keep on adding on.
Right.
And we're seeing that with some county seats too, because people are retiring, so it's the time to get that. Type of stuff. I mean, would, Greg, I throw it
I
out to
think
you.
it's a great idea. I know we've done them in the past, we did do them through the whole COVID
Yeah.
period, but I think it's time to get back into that, I hope so.
But
Yeah.
again, do it early for the primary.
I like that idea.
Because that's just Arkansas politics right now, in that some of them are decided in the primary.
Right.
There may or may not be the right person.
You know, especially with those ones that are a lot of people in them, we're trying to convince these guys that we have a lot of votes in the village. The only way you do it is show it.
Right.
And if we can push someone, he knows darn well, if it wasn't for the village, he wouldn't have won that because it's that tight. And we were pushing that, all of a sudden we got a little more clout with it.
I think the key on this is if we do these, we need to fill these places up. We need to make sure there's
Yeah.
people there.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right? We can't do one and 20 people show up. That'd be really bad.
But I mean, I can remember going back when, you know, when Asa Hutchinson showed up here for our candidate forum. You know, and then Leslie Rutledge showed up for our candidate forum. I didn't realize how short Leslie Rutledge really was until she's walking in. She's a very short lady. so.
Right.
But they were here. They came to the village and
Yeah.
reestablishing it hits into what you're talking about, the importance of the village voters who vote at a very high level, you know? They like standing in line outside the bank there, early
Now I'm
voting.
outside the storage unit place now, I
Yeah.
guess. Not the bank anymore.
So, I mean.
Yeah,
Sammy,
I think
Ray,
that's a great
we'll
idea.
sit and
Maybe
talk about-
you and Sam can get there to kind of formulate a plan.
And we can figure out, these are the people
Yeah.
we need to focus on, because they're the ones, you know, it's the decisions made.
Right. I mean, we can invite all of them, but I mean,
Yeah.
we'll, you
Yeah.
know, we wouldn't want to discriminate who we
And Greg,
invite.
on your point, as far as, you know, fear of filling the place, that'd be my fear too. Unless somebody hide, but even have them come here, you know, and if there's 6, maybe 3 at a time and the whole thing. And then out of that 6, everyone, especially Keith, got a feeling who's gonna make it. So we wanna be on the guy who's gonna make it.
Well, and this
For
is
a
where
later.
we probably need to coordinate, and I see Steve, who used to be the president of the Democratic, or the Village Democratic, but to work with the parties to make this happen, because I know the Republican women have them coming in onesies and twosies. You know,
Right.
someone comes in this month, you know, and talks, and then someone comes in next month, but you get them all together at once.
Yeah,
And,
I mean, they've already been having some of these candidates come in. 'cause
Oh, yeah,
We
I mean,
hosted a
it's-
couple of those meetings at the DeSoto already,
yeah,
so,
they're already coming in, but at the same time, we can get them all at once.
Yep.
yeah.
Because people don't go to the Republican meeting, or they may not go to the Democratic meeting,
Right.
but they would come when it's a POA type of thing.
Right.
And give them some cookies or something, they'll say.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, offer food and.
Offer food to be there, so,
Exactly,
okay.
yeah. Yeah, I think that's a great idea. I think if you and Sam can get together and kind of formulate a plan, we got some time, we can get this executed. I think that makes a lot of sense.
Yep.
Yep. All right, we'll move on. Let's see. David, did you have anything you wanted to add about what's going on in Hot Springs? You been to any meetings down there, if they had meetings lately?
Notes from the most recent Hot Springs meetings. First of all, they dedicated one entire 2 3/4 hour long session to a great fight over whether to have a halfway house in the Whittington Park area. And so there was standing room among the public, and there ended up being 3 of the council members that ended up recusing themselves before the vote, so that one got exciting. And the end result of that, after almost 3 hours, was that they ended up deciding to vote it down, at least for now, and to not approve a halfway house for up to 32 people in the Whittington Park area. So that was one entire meeting. Another meeting, there was some interesting information, and I particularly found it interesting because it sounded, a lot of it sounded pretty symbiotic with some of the things that we've been doing here in the village as well. One thing is that, as you may already know, they are building at least 3 different solar farm sites. One of those is on Highway 7 going into town, so you can sort of see it there.
You need to let Mike Murphy tell you about that too.
That's his.
That's
And
Mike's first site.
ultimately, the city manager says that Hot Springs will be one of only 6 cities in the entire country that will be relying totally on renewable energy sources. So the city board's redistricting map was passed without incident. Got unanimous approval, not much discussion, not much complaining by any particular current council member. So there was a fairly smooth redrawing of district lines in the city without apparently very many hard feelings. The budget for next year was approved, and it was stated that all city staff will receive a 3.25% raise. So they're giving some raises to city staff. In addition to that, they adopted a new staff retention plan, which will pay city employees an annual lump payment per year for having stayed with the city for a period of time. 1 through 5 years, they'll get $500 a year. 6 through 14 years, they'll get $1,000 a year, and then progressively on up from there. So they've looked at salary increases for staff, and they've also looked at a retention plan for staff. And then finally, they announced that there will be minimal, but there will be a little bit of increase in the fees for sanitation and wastewater services. It's like 25 to 50 cents a month or something to that effect. Not much, but slight increases in those services. That's it from the city.
Thanks, David. Sam, legislature's going to special session.
Yep.
Let's talk about taxes.
Going to Monday, talk about tax bill cut. Of course, Keith says everything's gonna be raised high on the other end, so I don't know what that means.
No, they're gonna take it out of, you know, you cut
Yeah,
your
one
income
pocket.
tax, but raise your property
Yeah.
tax.
That's a Texas thing.
But it makes them sound good.
Coming more like Texas every day.
Right. Also, some of the things they're gonna be talking about is, there's currently 31.68 million reclaimed money in the general allotment reserve fund. So what they wanna do is, if they didn't take action, the money would be all swept in the long-term reserve, and they don't wanna do that. It's the intent to move 14,000 to the restricted fund and the balance into the restricted reserve account. So just kind of shuffling money around. Tax Appeals Commission, they need to change some of the language on that, so they're gonna be working on that one. The insulin bill, that was passed during the regular season, Act 1104. Since then, they determined that it's a large financial impact on the EBA and other insurance companies, therefore, they're gonna repeal that act, and push the repeal of that act. LLC, limited liability companies, they determined that the drafting of the issue that they passed caused Arkansas to not have an LLC law from January 28th, 21st to September 1st, 2001, and that bill needs to be passed to rectify that issue. Appropriation bill, money that they got from the government and the American Rescue Plan from the federal government, directly to the state of Arkansas for specific uses. Well, they found out that that money's running out, so they have to come in and do another bill on it to fix that. And the only other thing, he said there's starting to be talk about legislation concerning critical race theory. He says, oh, there's not much talk about it, so he doesn't think that'll go anywhere, but that's about it. But the tax bill cut's the big thing.
Thanks, Dave. Dr. Murphy?
Really, the only thing I can convey at this point is, as I was kind of looking at enrollment numbers, enrollment remains to be stable. As far as the overall projects within the district, we were kind of conveying before the meeting, the biggest impact to the district right now on the daily operations is RDOT and the entry points into the school. Anyone, I think regardless of whether it's in peak traffic period times or off-peak, there's a lot of one-way traffic on Highway Park Avenue 5 in front of the school in that area, so would highly caution people to consider an alternate route or experience pretty significant delays. RDOT has, they're trying to get out from front of the school, but it is projected before they get everything curved in and get past down where they're doing the reconstructions of the bridge. It's probably going to be just, they think it's gonna be closer to Christmas or shortly thereafter. So probably after the holidays before, and then of course, things kind of turn to the other side of the road. The only other thing I can provide in that area is job superintendent. They kind of balance working right there where we're at and back at the roundabout. And then their intention is to try to get the roundabout opened so people can start making decisions in that area before they have the expressway option to make that available. So the roundabout will open before it ever connects to the expressway. Other than that, we have been openly conveying the strategy for a long-term facility proposal, would be open to visiting with any civic organization, church group, neighborhood community that wants more information on the current status of the school setting. And so that's kind of where we're at this point in time.
How's your COVID situation? I've seen, the state's done a report,
right.
some schools are.
So from a perspective there, continue to work with our health clinic, kept our protocols in place. We have had minimal disruption, minimal cases. When I say that, over the last 2 months, no more than 3 active cases at any given time, and that's students and staff. We have to include the employee base as well as the student population. So we haven't seen any formulation of an uptick locally. Which is a good thing. and have had just very minimal disruption to the learning in that regard. Still having, we meet every other week now with the COVID task force, which is a culmination of city leaders, county individuals, all school districts, health department. And what we do there is just kind of try to stay a step ahead of, the medical side, kind of, they talk about current active cases, and we discuss current strategies that are being utilized. I think that's been a benefit to the Central Arkansas region, both Garland and, we don't engage superintendents like Bryant over in that area. It's pretty much a Garland County kind of thing, and it's coordinated through EMS. But I think that has been beneficial in just everyone working collectively together. It's not only public schools, but also National Park. That's just a few things that we've done. You know, Mountain Pine did have kind of a viewed outbreak that they did close school prior to Thanksgiving for roughly 3 or 4 days. But knock on wood, we haven't had that type of experience. We did have a vaccination clinic with the 5 to 11-year-olds. Still, participation was minimal. I think everybody's still doing their research as to whether they want that vaccine or not, but we had roughly 50 children between the ages of 5 and 11 go ahead and take the vaccine when it was available there at the health clinic.
Is that solar panel, is that connected to the school that's going up there?
Yeah, the solar panels down near Belvedere, I was getting ready to send Bill a message because of what David was alluding to. I know from Scenic Hill Solar's perspective, they're the owner of the array. We're a partner within the array.
Okay.
And they could have multiple partners within that array, but I do know that we're a direct partner with them, and for them to become cost effective, the more power they can generate, their intention would be to gain access to rebates from multiple entities, because where Scenic Hill Solar wins in that is partnering with a public entity. They get better rebates on the overall cost of the equipment.
So will the school then be powered by that?
The school will actually be it'll be a net metering process back to Entergy, which in turn, when this array opens and comes online, we'll no longer pay our energy bill to Entergy. We will pay our energy payment and consumption to Scenic Hill Solar.
Okay.
What we gain in that process is roughly a reduction in the overall percent kilowatt that we pay. And so in the contract negotiated, we come in at less than 7 cents per kilowatt, where we're currently paying in excess of 13 cents. We're getting a significant reduction in the overall per kilowatt that we're paying, and through the life of the consumption of energy, it's projected to save over $1 million in utility costs through the life of the project, which extends to 25 years.
When will that come online?
They think they'll have the array operational. It really does need to get the fullest benefits. They're kind of under a timeline. They need to get this array turned on by the end of this fiscal year, because everything clicks over to new, just like residential considerations. If you make the payment on the equipment prior to the beginning of the calendar year, you get a better rebate in the current year, because these rebates will continuously become smaller. And so it's trying to onboard people into solar consumption.
Who's eligible to sign up with them? Is it within the city limits or within the county, or just their customers?
It's really,
or-
the uniqueness of this is when we studied it, had we chosen Entergy's strategy, the actual solar farm would have been in Stuttgart, Arkansas. So you can have a partnership and a public entity. We kind of chose a strategy and approach because, my negotiation strategy is I wanted the array to reside within the district, because the utility, the overall equipment, all of that, then there's a property tax paid if the array is held locally versus if the array is in Stuttgart and they add, X number of panels down there, then that goes to that tax-paying entity. So Scenic Hill Solar was willing to engage in the project purchase within the district boundary as a component of the agreement. And that was their greatest challenge. We could have very well had this array, we've been working on this close to almost, I'd say, every bit 18 months. But purchase of property within the district boundary was the major challenge. Just based on a lot of people wanting to hang on to their property right now because they don't know what it's gonna be worth when the expressway opens. And then the other, you know, the ones who did wanna sell is $1 million gift.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, you pay, I'm willing to sell, but you're gonna let me retire off my
That's perfect.
sale.
Right.
So, finding a reasonable location in that regard. But yeah, there's really no limitation to the geography of the array. It's gonna have to be within the state of Arkansas. And then, of course, there's different rebate structures for public entities versus private entities in that regard.
Thought you picked the perfect hill.
Yeah.
You know, that was their call.
I mean, there's not much
good
was
spot,
there.
Yeah, well, we went and viewed a couple of, it's really amazing. They do have automated arrays that actually tilt. If they're in the flatter ground, they'll have a rotational tilt based on the direction of the sun to capture it in full. But there's actually generation of energy on cloudy days. I wouldn't think that, but when we really began to study it, but I would, as a final note, I would tell you, we did not want to be in the business as a school district managing solar. We got enough to do. So, you know, so we chose a partner, they're the owner, they're gonna maintain it, they're gonna fix it, they're gonna keep it operational, and of course, the only thing that we kind of looked at is we had done a ton of technology upgrades that made sure that our fiscal plant was very energy efficient, because, you know, we're marrying up to a contract saying that we plan to utilize X amount of energy.
Sure.
That's the only thing where our contract, if our energy consumption, for some reason, we're obligated to X amount of energy consumption in the prediction. Does that make sense?
Yep. If it really dropped, you could sell it out.
Well, they get the excess.
Yeah.
What happens, when I say they, Scenic Hill Solar, where their skin is in the game is they're partnering in with us and potentially others, but they're selling every bit of the energy that they create to Entergy.
Right.
And then they're getting a rate with Entergy, then Entergy is charging a rate back to the public.
Right.
So that array is going to generate energy that we won't be using, that will be for the general public.
Yeah. I know there was a company a group that was looking at doing a similar thing over on the Saline County side.
Well, we're doing it, the county did it.
Huh?
The county has done it.
No, I mean, there was a private entity that was looking at, because they approached me as a commercial user. They were looking at building an array over there near the shopping center at the east side over that
Well,
direction.
I was just, my question was how much pushback when you told Energy you're not going with them, how much you got?
You know, you know.
They don't care.
It took some
Well, no,
time.
there was, when we went through with the county and did ours, we had a little pushback from the local utility company that was gonna lose some money.
Right.
It was
They
not a-
weren't overly excited about
Yeah.
it because we didn't choose their solution. But with that, our board, it took time to get this across the finish line, because it did impact the local, you know, technically, you look at Entergy, we pay locally, but it's a pretty vast footprint of energy that they serve, so, but it was not it took us probably 7 months of research to actually get a board vote that concluded in beginning the project.
Entergy and others made a run at the PUC at the state level to try to change the rules around net metering, and that's what they will do. They don't
Yeah.
care about an individual
Correct.
deal.
Yeah.
They're gonna work on it at the state level.
Yeah,
And that was lobbied, and people like companies such as Scenic Hill Solar and others
Right.
were in opposition to that because they're trying to get more of a free enterprise approach
Uh-huh.
to combat the utility,
Right.
being the conglomerate.
Exactly. Which Texas did a similar thing, but went way too far, hence the problems that they've got currently from this past winter. But yeah, I mean, in Texas, you could pick from 100 different utility providers in Texas, anybody you wanted to buy your electricity from, so it's very, very
And
interesting.
the prices all over the place.
Oh, yeah, some of it was demand-based, which is what caused that one company to send
Right.
people bills for $100,000 in a month. Okay, let's talk about the economic impact study, Bob.
Okay, I've got some highlights here that Professor Miller sent to me yesterday. These are draft numbers. That's certainly not complete yet. The report itself needs more work to be done. The If you look at the 2016 report, the first line says that the economic impact in 2016, or in 2016, was $321 million, which is quite an impact. And of course, we're assuming that's going to go up. These numbers, if you look on the county page, the third page, I believe it is, there's a dip in
2015. Which we don't quite understand.
2015,
So
which we don't understand.
We're pretty sure there's some sort of error in that, because that doesn't make any sense.
But this will give you some idea of what they're looking at. The report itself has quite a bit of text. The text needs to be edited. It needs to be, we talked about this at the last meeting. It hasn't been updated. Jerry Urick did some updates on the governance section. Those have not been incorporated yet. There's still talking about widening Highway 70 from Hot Springs to I-30. Of course, that's over and done with. We need to update that to talk about Highway 5 and Highway 7. So there's still more work that needs to be done, but this is in progress. Professor Miller was laid low a little bit. He had a Moderna complication and was out for a few days, so that was one of the things that caused some delay. I'd asked Dr. Murphy and Superintendent Spears to I think he contacted y'all, Dr. Murphy, about tax numbers, et cetera. And we want to make sure that's right.
Yeah, I want to go back to him and look at that further. I was just analyzing that. When's his timeline?
He's trying to finalize a report by the end of this month. He's trying to get it done in December, so.
Yeah. So that'll be one thing that we're going to try to get done by the end of the year, and see if we can have this information together. We've talked a lot about people handing out reports directly to people. One thing you need to start thinking about is how many copies of this report do you want? Because that's part of our contract, and we may want them when they start printing to turn the cameras on for a little bit extra time.
Right.
So Sam, if you've got thoughts about how many people you want to hand this out to, or Keith, if you've got thoughts about how many people, let's get those numbers pulled together.
Yeah, we need to figure out how that we disseminate this on the village's webpage as well. Where it fits, where it's visible, where people can go and find it quickly, to download the PDF version of the report so they can have their own copy.
And I would hope that if you look at the old report, there's sort of an executive summary. And I would hope that we would be able to come up with a bullet point
Yes.
with the, people aren't going to read 40 pages.
That's right.
You hand them this and it's going in the trash can or the stack. But if you hand them 2 pages with bullet points, they can read that.
Yeah, and our marketing agency, I think, also needs to be geared up to be doing a press release on this when it's released, to talk about the highlights, the economic impact of Hot Springs Village, as part of a PR program. Some of the numbers that he's just highlighted in the email he sent was that our economic impact, based on their current assumptions, was about $371 million last year.
Well, and that's the 2016 number.
No, that's the 2020 number. He says 371 million is what he said.
Yeah, but
2020.
that was also the number in the 2016
I
report.
thought he had 317 or something, wasn't it? The 2016 report?
Yeah, 371.
Okay, yeah, it's interesting, because this says 2020, this one says
Right.
2016. So it could, I don't know if it's a typo error or whatever, but, I mean, it's significant, right, that we need to be talking about, for sure.
We also need to find out, the reason for the sort of the outlier, particularly with the benefits to Garland County.
Yeah, I saw one thing in the draft narrative, we didn't print all this out and send it to you, but there's a couple of errors in the draft narrative in one of his charts, where it was supposed to be like 58 million and turned into 5.8 million. So I'm guessing that's where some of that happened. Because just looking at, in one part of the narrative, he'll say 58 million, and then in the graph it said 5.8 million. So I think there's just, it's still draft and it's still work in progress, but.
Yeah.
Because I don't think, I mean, we shouldn't see, that that doesn't make any sense. So it's just, on the face of it, looks wrong.
But I mean, before we go public,
Oh, yeah, for sure.
we need to understand it.
Yeah.
I mean, an impact like that is something that, besides our representatives and senators, Little Rock needs to see, the powers up there.
Yeah,
Make sure they know exactly what's coming out of this village.
right.
There would be a perfect opportunity to hand it to a person if they're at the candidate forum, we just slip it to them right there.
Yeah.
So you think about that, we should have a final version by, if we do the candidate forum,
We'll have the final version long
have the
before
final
that, I
version,
think.
if you don't catch it before then, hey,
Yeah.
they came down here, here's something to take away from it.
Yeah,
Right.
you're right.
So just a thought process there for last minute, you'd like to do the
Right.
personal thing, but, you know.
One of the things that Greg and I were talking about earlier, we looked at this, was they were talking about the disparate numbers between the tax revenue going into the counties versus the amount that the counties were spending on the village. And other than courthouse services, we were scratching our head as to what those services were.
Well, for one thing, from the county perspective, just the overhead of having a county judge, having a county assessor, having a county collector, having
Yeah.
a county treasurer, you start adding up there, we got, in Saline County, 10% of the, whatever he uses as a factor is, that needs to come off the overhead. So that's
Right.
why it starts whittling it down, type of stuff. So, I mean.
Right.
You'd have to, he has some factor in there.
Yeah, he's got a factor in there.
But
We were trying to
there's just that
figure out.
overhead, it's the overhead, and it was interesting, we were having a discussion about county jails in another, offline discussion. But, just having a county jail, we get more usage out of the Garland County Jail than we do out of the Saline County Jail.
Right.
It's just our demographics of who are people who need to go to jail. They tend to come more out of Garland County than Saline.
Well, the Garnet County Jail has more openings
Well,
than the
they do
Saline
have
County
more
Jail, so
openings.
a lot of people don't go to the Saline County Jail because they don't have any place to put them, so the police just let them go. So,
But, I mean, so just having the overhead of having a sheriff and having, even though we don't get the sheriff's services, but there's an overhead of just having some of
Right.
those things.
but it's interesting, just in this summary, the household and visitor spending, that is $230 million just in that,
Yeah.
Almost 4,000 jobs related to us existing here.
I mean, it comes down to it is, I mean, those are numbers that both counties and the state want to make sure the village survives.
Right.
Because that is a lot of income that's going out their ways. If the village wasn't here, they have to
Right.
make up somewhere else. And I'll be honest with you, I doubt if they really realize that. I mean, we're just a small little, community, but yet we probably provide more money than all the small towns around us and the whole thing. And I think that's something that we need to take advantage of and hit home.
There was there was a study done a lot of years ago by Johns Hopkins that did a very, very detailed and thorough study of different demographics, age groups, socioeconomics, whatever. And they did a study of how much each of those demographics, very much like the economic impact study per demographic group of how much they contribute in taxes to a community versus how much they extract back out in needed services. For example, children did not fare particularly well because they pay no taxes, and the city has to pay for their schools. And to make a long story short, the specific demographic that made the greatest contributions to a community economically with the least need for return services was I think it was defined as active or healthy seniors, which is who the village is.
Makes sense.
And so this study said active, healthy seniors are the most economically desired demographic for a government entity.
It's interesting, we talk about the economic impact study, but the actual name of the report is the Social and Economic Contributions
Right.
Report. And it talks about, in the full text, it talks about the demographics, and it goes through all those.
Exactly. So Bob and I discussed earlier, and I think he's gonna try to put together a little subcommittee of the committee to review the drafts that they're working on, so we can provide feedback to the drafts as they work through them. There are some of the edits which Bob noted that Jerry Eric had done to the original draft. They haven't incorporated yet in their current draft. So we need just to make sure that's all getting done and those updates are getting applied appropriately as we had hoped. And then I think Bob's volunteered to go down and meet with him and kind of go through things that we see in person, so over at the university. So I think that's all good things, because I think this is a very important study, and getting this right is important. And having it done by a third party that's outside of us to validate it with models that make sense is very, very important, as opposed to us kind of putting together our own sort of study. So I think we're making good progress. Did get slowed down just for a variety of reasons, including the census getting delayed and everything else. We certainly hoped this would have been done long before now, but I think we're on the road now, it looks like. And I'm glad he was able to send us a draft this week so we could get an idea kind of where they were at.
Right.
Because this is the first draft we've received from them on the study. So, we have any other new business? Anything else anyone would like to bring up? Any guests that would like to speak? Any questions you guys have? No? Well, given that there's no further business and no other questions, I guess we'll mark this meeting as adjourned. I do have one point to note for our meeting in October. We won't be able to have it at this facility. So we got to find another place to have our meeting in October, because they're having the Arkansas Heritage Festival here that week. And they're going to consume the entire
So
facility
what
here,
restaurant we going to?
Yeah, I don't know. So we'll be we'll be looking for another location for the October meeting, but I just thought I'd give you the heads up.
Bob was asking earlier about coffee.
Yeah, exactly. So, because I think it's a good thing. The Heritage Festival was a lot of fun last time. I think it'll be even better this year. We have more time to get it planned, and I think it'll be a really good thing for us to have. So,
And as it gets closer to October, if we have not found some other more desirable location, I would imagine that our church could offer a room.
yeah, I think we can find locations. I was just bringing it up that I think there's that just to let people know that in October we won't be having it here. I just thought I'll be working with event staff here. We'll find another location. They have locations at Coronado and other places that we could use. I think should be available in that time frame. So, all right, thanks everybody. We will see you after the years. Have a great Christmas and a great New Year. We'll see you next year.